The ER smelled like antiseptic and desperation. I'd been on my feet for 11 hours straight, double shift because Jenny called in sick again, when the ambulance bay doors burst open and my entire world shattered. Female, approximately 4 years old, hit and run, significant head trauma, possible broken arm. The paramedic's voice faded to white noise the second I saw the dark curls matted with blood. The butterfly backpack I'd packed this morning, the pink shoes with the lights that Mia loved because they made her feel like a superhero. That's my daughter. The words ripped from my throat. That's Mia. My supervisor, Janet, grabbed my shoulders. Sophia, you can't treat her. You know the rules. But I was already moving, my hands reaching for my baby girl's small, pale face. Her eyes were closed. Too still. Too quiet. Where was the chatter about butterflies and cookies and the new friend she'd made at daycare? Mia, baby, Mama's here. My voice cracked. I'm right here. Dr. Morrison took over, his voice calm and clinical as he called out orders. IV fluids, CT scan, ortho consult. The familiar rhythm of trauma care that I'd participated in hundreds of times, but never like this. Never when it was my child bleeding on the gurney. Janet pulled me back gently but firmly. Let them work. You know this. I watched through the glass as they cut away her clothes, revealing the bruises already blooming across her small rib cage. Rage and terror warred in my chest, making it hard to breathe. Who did this? Who hurt my baby and drove away? Sophia. Janet's voice cut through my panic. We need her medical history, and we called the emergency contact listed in her daycare records. Ice flooded my veins. What contact? A Marco DeLuca? He's on his way. No. That's a mistake, I said quickly, my heart hammering. That's outdated. I need to update. He's already in the parking lot. The ER entrance doors exploded open. 6 men in dark suits entered first, moving with military precision, hands positioned near concealed weapons. Security guards froze mid-step. Conversations died. The entire emergency room held its breath. Then he walked in. Marco DeLuca looked like vengeance in an Italian suit. 5 years had only sharpened him. His jaw more defined, his presence more commanding, his storm-gray eyes scanning the room with lethal focus until they locked on mine through the trauma bay window. Time stopped. I watched his expression shift from fury to confusion as his gaze moved from me to the small figure on the gurney, to the dark hair so like his own, to the delicate features that were an impossible blend of both of us. He went absolutely still. One of his men spoke urgently in Italian, but Marco raised a single hand, silencing him without looking away from the trauma bay. From our daughter. I saw the exact moment the math clicked into place. His eyes widened, then narrowed. His jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscle jump. His hands, those dangerous hands that I once knew intimately, curled into fists at his sides. Dr. Morrison emerged from the trauma bay, pulling off his gloves. Are you family? Marco's eyes never left mine as he answered, his voice deadly quiet. I'm her father. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Then his gaze shifted to me, and I saw everything in those storm-gray eyes. Betrayal, fury, confusion, and something that looked dangerously like anguish. He crossed the distance between us in 4 strides. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, but I heard the promise of reckoning in every syllable. We need to talk. Marco's men cleared the surgical waiting room in less than 3 minutes. Families with crying children, elderly couples holding hands, a teenager with a broken leg, all relocated to other areas with apologies and compensations I didn't want to think about. Then it was just us, and the suffocating silence. I stood by the window, arms wrapped around myself, watching the city lights blur through my tears. Behind me I could hear Marco breathing, controlled, measured, like a predator deciding when to strike. How old is she? The question was soft, dangerously so. 4. My voice sounded hollow. She turned 4 in March. March 15th. It wasn't a question. He'd done the math. You were pregnant when you left. I turned to face him. He stood with his back against the door, blocking the only exit, his suit jacket open enough that I could see the gun holstered at his side. 5 years ago, that sight would have terrified me. Now it barely registered. I had my reasons. Your reasons. He pushed off the door, closing the distance between us in 2 strides. You ran in the middle of the night. You disappeared so completely that my best people couldn't find a trace. You let me think. His voice cracked, just for a second, before the iron control returned. I thought you were dead, Sophia. Do you understand that? I mourned you. You would have locked me away. The words burst out. You would have wrapped me in bubble wrap and armed guards and suffocated me with protection until I couldn't breathe. I couldn't live like that. I wouldn't let my daughter live like that. Our daughter. His hand shot out, gripping my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. Say it. Our daughter, I whispered. Something flickered in his expression. Pain, wonder, fury all tangled together. Then his phone buzzed. He released me and answered in rapid Italian, his tone shifting to the cold, calculated voice I remembered from his business calls. When he ended the call, his face was granite. The hit and run wasn't an accident. My blood turned to ice. What? Witness saw the car circle the daycare twice before accelerating. He pulled out his phone, showed me photos that made my stomach lurch. Tire marks, calculated trajectory, security footage of a black sedan with tinted windows. Someone was targeting her specifically. But why? Nobody knows about... I stopped, horror dawning. They were targeting me. Because of you. Because of what we were. Because someone found out what you are to me. His voice was lethal. And they used our daughter to send a message. I sank into a chair, legs giving out. Oh God, Mia, is she... Will there be more? There won't be. Marco crouched in front of me, his hands gripping my knees. Because you're both moving into my compound tonight. Full security, medical staff, everything you need. No. I shook my head. I won't go back to being your prisoner. You'll go back to being alive. He stood, pulling out his phone again. I've already sent men to pack up your apartment. Your lease will be paid out. Your supervisor has been informed you're taking emergency family leave. You can't just... I can, and I did. He leaned down, his face inches from mine. Someone used my daughter. The word sounded raw, new, devastating on his tongue. To hurt me. That ends now, tonight. You can hate me later, Sophia, but right now, you're going to let me protect what's mine. The waiting room door opened. A detective in a rumpled suit stepped in, badge visible. I need to speak with Ms. Chen about... A man in an expensive suit materialized from nowhere. My client and her daughter are unavailable for questioning, indefinitely. Marco's lawyer. Of course. The detective's eyes narrowed. This is a criminal investigation. Then investigate. Marco's voice was silk over steel. But you'll do it without harassing a mother whose child is in surgery. Now get out. Mia woke up crying. Not the loud, wailing cry of a tantrum, but the soft, confused whimper of a child in pain who doesn't understand why. The sound shattered what was left of my composure. I'm here, baby. I rushed to her bedside, careful not to jostle the IV line or the cast on her small arm. Mama's right here. Her blue eyes, no, gray eyes, I realized with a jolt, focused on me slowly, still hazy from anesthesia. Mama? My arm hurts. I know, sweetheart. The doctors fixed it. You're going to be okay. There was a car. Her voice was small, frightened. It was coming fast and I couldn't. Don't think about that now. I smoothed her dark curls back from her forehead, my hand trembling. You're safe. Is she awake? I'd forgotten Marco was there. He'd been standing in the corner of the recovery room for the past hour, silent as a statue, just watching, waiting. Now he moved forward, and I saw what he carried. A stuffed white tiger, enormous and plush, with kind amber eyes. Mia's real eyes, those gray eyes that were mirror images of her father's, went wide. For me? For you. Marco's voice was rough, unfamiliar with the gentleness he was trying to achieve. He approached the bed slowly, as if she might spook. I heard tigers are very brave, and so are you. Mia studied him with that unnerving intensity 4-year-olds sometimes possess. Taking in his dark hair, his strong jaw, the expensive suit that looked out of place in the sterile hospital room. Are you the prince from Mama's stories? I felt the blood drain from my face. Marco's eyes snapped to mine, questions and accusations, and something achingly hopeful in that single glance. Then he looked back at Mia, his expression softening in a way I'd never seen. Your mama tells you stories about a prince? Uh-huh. Mia hugged the tiger to her chest with her good arm. He's very tall and brave, and he fights monsters. But he had to go away on a long quest and couldn't come back. Not yet. She tilted her head. Are you him? Marco knelt beside the bed, bringing himself to her eye level. His hands gripped the bed rail, knuckles white. I'm a very old friend of your mama's, someone who wants very much to protect you. Mia considered this with 4-year-old logic. Then she looked at me, then back at him, her gaze tracking between our faces with growing recognition. You look like me, she said simply. Marco's breath caught, audible, raw. Do I? Uh-huh, same eyes, same chin. She touched her own chin with one small finger. And same nose, kinda. Are you my daddy? The question hung in the air like glass about to shatter. I watched Marco's face transform, the careful control crumbling, replaced by naked emotion. His eyes filled with tears that he didn't bother to hide. When he reached out, his dangerous hands shaking, and gently touched the cast on her arm, his voice broke completely. Yes, baby girl, I'm your daddy. Where were you before? The question only a child would ask. Direct, devastating. I didn't know about you. Marco's thumb stroked her small knuckles so carefully, as if she was made of spun glass. But now I do. And I promise you... His voice roughened with emotion. I've missed every moment up until now. Never again, Mia. Never again. Mia smiled, satisfied with this answer in the way only children can be. Okay, Daddy. The word broke him. I watched this man I'd once loved, this dangerous man who'd built an empire on fear and control, bow his head against our daughter's hospital bed and weep silently. A nurse knocked softly. Excuse me? There was a man earlier asking questions about the DeLuca girl. He left before security could question him. Marco's head snapped up, tears still wet on his face, his expression transforming instantly to lethal focus. Describe him. The estate sat on 20 acres outside the city, surrounded by walls that looked decorative but were reinforced steel. Guards at every gate. Cameras tracking our approach from half a mile out. The main house rose from manicured gardens like a fortress dressed as a mansion. I felt the golden cage closing around me with every mile. Wow, Mia breathed from my lap, her face pressed to the SUV's window despite the late hour. Mama, it's like a castle. It's home, Marco said quietly from beside me. You're home now. The words settled like chains around my chest. Inside, The house was worse, or better, depending on perspective. A woman in her 50s waited in the marble foyer, kind eyes and capable hands. "I'm Elena, the house manager. We have the princess suite ready." Princess suite. Of course. Mia's room was on the second floor, connected to a larger master bedroom by a shared bathroom. The space was enormous, canopy bed with white silk curtains, shelves already lined with toys still in their packaging, a reading nook with pillows, and windows overlooking gardens lit by soft pathway lights. Bulletproof glass. I could tell by the thickness. "When did you do all this?" I asked Marco as Mia explored, her cast forgotten in her excitement. "Today. This afternoon." He stood in the doorway, watching our daughter with hungry eyes. "I made calls from the hospital." In 6 hours, he'd furnished an entire room for a child he'd just learned existed. Elena appeared with warm milk and cookies. "For the little one. And Dr. Rashid is waiting downstairs. Pediatric specialist. He'll check her vitals, make sure she's comfortable through the night." "You hired a doctor?" "He's on staff." Marco's tone suggested this was obvious. "Along with a pediatric nurse, physical therapist for her arm rehabilitation, and a trauma counselor. Children who experience accidents need support." I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. Because he was right, and because I couldn't have afforded any of those things on my nurse's salary. After Dr. Rashid's examination and Mia finally fell asleep, clutching her white tiger, Marco led me to my own room, connecting to Mia's but separate, private. Another cage, no matter how gilded. "You put cameras everywhere." I'd noticed them. Discreet, but visible if you knew what to look for. In every common area, not in bedrooms or bathrooms. He pulled out a tablet, showed me the security feed. Dozens of angles covering the grounds, the gates, the approaches. "You need to understand what we're dealing with." He pulled up files, threat assessments, crime scene photos from Mia's hit and run, security footage of a car that had been tailing us from the hospital. Different car, same intent. 3 families want to use her against me. 2 federal investigations make us vulnerable. And someone, his jaw clenched. Someone already tried once. They'll try again. So we're prisoners. You're protected. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "I know what this looks like, Sophia. I know you ran from this life 5 years ago, but that was before someone weaponized our daughter, before they made her a target just by existing. Because of what you are. Because of what we are." He caught my shoulders. "You were mine once. They remember. And now she's proof of that connection. I can't change the past. I can't make the danger disappear. But I will burn this entire city down before anyone touches her again." The intensity in his eyes was terrifying, and something else, something that made my traitorous heart skip. "Get some rest," he said finally, releasing me. "Tomorrow we establish routines. Make this feel like home for her." He left, closing the door softly behind him. I stood alone in the luxurious prison, listening to Mia's soft breathing through the bathroom door, and wondered how long before the walls started closing in. Later, much later, I woke to use the bathroom and saw light under Mia's door. Marco sat on the floor beside her bed, watching our daughter sleep. Silent tears tracked down his face, catching the nightlight's glow. 3 days passed in careful routine. Mia's cast was decorated with stickers. Her bruises were fading from purple to yellow, and she'd decided that Marco was the most fascinating person in her small world. "Daddy, will you read me a story?" I froze in the doorway of Mia's room, where I'd come to tuck her in. Marco stood near the bookshelf, still in his suit, though he'd loosened his tie. At Mia's question, he looked like she'd asked him to defuse a bomb. Your mama usually... Mama reads every night. I want you to read tonight." Mia patted the bed beside her. "Please?" Marco looked at me helplessly. This man who commanded empires, who made grown men tremble with a single glance, was completely undone by a 4-year-old's request. I nodded, stepping back. Go ahead. He chose a book, The Lost Princess, and settled carefully onto the edge of Mia's bed. His large frame looked absurd on the delicate furniture, but Mia didn't seem to notice. She snuggled against his side immediately, trusting in the way only children can. Marco opened the book and began to read. His voice was wrong, too formal, too measured, reading the words without the character voices or dramatic pauses that stories needed. No, Mia interrupted after 2 pages. The dragon sounds scary. You have to make him sound scary. Marco cleared his throat and tried again. Fifi fofum. That's the giant from the other story, Daddy. Mia giggled. The dragon goes roar. I watched him try. Watched this dangerous man make ridiculous dragon sounds while our daughter dissolved into delighted laughter. Watched something in his carefully controlled expression crack and soften. When the story ended, the princess finding her way home after being lost, Mia was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that had clearly been building. Daddy, where were you before, when I was little? Marco set the book down carefully. His hands trembled slightly. I didn't know you existed, Piccolina. Your mama and we lived apart. I didn't know she was going to have you. Oh, Mia processed this with 4-year-old logic. But you know now. I know now. And you're not going away again? Never. The word was fierce. I promise you, Mia, I will be here for every story, every bedtime, every morning, for every moment from now on. Can you be my daddy forever then? Not just for now? The question destroyed him. I watched Marco's face crumble, watched him pull our daughter carefully into his arms, mindful of her cast, and hold her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I am your daddy, he whispered against her hair. Forever. I promise you everything, baby girl. Protection, love. I'll keep you safe from every monster, real or imagined. I'll never miss another moment. Mia yawned against his shoulder. Good. I love you, Daddy. He squeezed his eyes shut. I love you too, Mia. So much. After she fell asleep, we stood in the hallway. That's when I noticed his hands. His knuckles were split, bruised. Some cuts were fresh, still oozing slightly. What did you do? My voice came out steadier than I felt. Marco looked at his hands as if noticing the damage for the first time. 2 of the families responsible for the hit and run have withdrawn their interest. Permanently. Permanently. They won't trouble us again. His tone was casual, matter of fact. Like he was discussing the weather, not violence. The 3rd family will make their decision by morning. Marco. He met my eyes, and what I saw there chilled me. Not rage, but absolute certainty. Cold purpose. What any father would do, he said softly. Protect his child. The federal agent arrived at noon, flanked by 2 U.S. Marshals, and carrying a warrant that Marco's lawyers examined with surgical precision. Agent Robert Chen, FBI. He showed his badge to Elena at the door, though his eyes were already scanning the foyer, cataloging exits and security. I need to speak with Marco DeLuca regarding recent disappearances connected to organized crime activity. I watched from the top of the stairs as Marco descended, buttoning his suit jacket. The transformation was instant. The gentle father who'd read bedtime stories last night vanished, replaced by the cold, controlled man I'd fled from 5 years ago. Agent Chen. Marco's voice was pleasant, empty. You have a warrant to speak with me. Not to search my home. Not to disturb my family. Your family. Chen's eyes found me. Ms. Sophia Chen. No relation, I assume, despite the shared surname. Former ER nurse. disappeared 5 years ago, right around the time Marco DeLuca's organization experienced restructuring. I don't see how my personal life is relevant to your investigation, I said, descending the stairs slowly. It's relevant when 2 men connected to the DeLuca organization turn up dead within 48 hours of a child being admitted to the hospital listed under DeLuca's emergency contact. Chen pulled out photos, crime scene images I didn't want to see. Interesting timing. Marco's lawyer stepped forward. My client has alibis for both incidents, verified, documented. If you have actual evidence, I have patterns. Chen turned back to Marco. And I have concerns about a child being raised in this environment. Child Protective Services might be very interested in... The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Finish that sentence, Marco said softly, and you'll discover exactly how far I'm willing to go to protect my daughter. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Marco moved forward, and even the marshals tensed. You want to question my fitness as a parent? Let's do it properly. Court-appointed evaluators. Psychological assessments. Home studies. I welcome it, because you'll find a child who's loved, protected, and provided for. You'll find medical care most families can only dream of. You'll find safety. You'll find a crime lord teaching his daughter that violence solves problems. You'll find a father, Marco corrected, his voice like steel, who eliminated threats to his child, and I'd do it again. But you can't prove that, can you, Agent Chen? Because I'm very good at what I do. Chen's jaw tightened. He looked at me. Ms. Chen, you have rights. If you feel you or your daughter are being held here against your will, I'm here by choice. The lie tasted bitter, but it was also partially true. For my daughter's safety. You think you're safer here? Chen's voice dropped. You've just painted targets on both of you. Everyone knows now. Marco DeLuca has a weakness. A 4-year-old weakness. How long before someone else tries what the Castellano family attempted? The name hit like a physical blow. Castellano, one of the 3 families Marco mentioned. After Chen left, escorted out by Marco's lawyers with threats of harassment suits, I found Marco in his study, staring out at the gardens where Mia played under the watchful eyes of 2 guards. He's not wrong, Marco said without turning. My world is dangerous. It will always be dangerous. He turned to face me, and I saw something in his expression I'd never seen before. Defeat. I can set you up anywhere in the world. New identities, unlimited resources, protection from a distance, my best people, but invisible. You and Mia could have normal lives. His voice cracked. I'll give up being her father if it keeps her safe. Before I could answer, a small voice called from the doorway. Daddy? We both turned to see Mia standing there in her pajamas, tears streaming down her face, clutching her white tiger. I had a bad dream about the bad car. Can you check my room for monsters? 3 weeks passed like pages turning in a book I didn't know I was reading. Mia's cast was covered in colorful drawings now, mostly Marco's terrible attempts at butterflies and tigers that made her giggle. Her nightmares came less frequently. The trauma counselor said she was resilient, that children often were, especially when they felt safe. And somehow, impossibly, the compound had started to feel safe. I watched the transformation happen in increments. Marco canceled morning meetings to make Mia pancakes. Lumpy, slightly burnt, but made with such careful concentration that Mia declared them the best ever. He rescheduled conference calls around her nap time. I once walked past his study to find him on a video meeting with what were clearly dangerous men, while simultaneously braiding Mia's hair with YouTube tutorials playing silently on his tablet. The braids were terrible. Mia loved them anyway. Daddy made me look like a princess, she'd announced proudly, the lopsided braids already falling apart. He was learning, obsessively. The way he'd once studied strategy and territory, he now studied child development. Parenting books appeared on his nightstand. He asked my permission for everything, what Mia could eat, when she could swim in the pool, whether certain toys were age-appropriate. "You're her mother," he'd say whenever I questioned why he was checking with me. "You know her. I'm still learning." This morning, I found them in the garden. Mia was crouched near the butterfly bushes, her cast wrapped in plastic, pointing at a monarch that had landed nearby. "See, Daddy? The orange ones are monarchs. They fly to Mexico in the winter." Marco knelt beside her in his $1,000 suit, dirt on his knees, taking notes on his phone with absolute seriousness. "Mexico? Do they have tiny suitcases?" Mia dissolved into giggles. "No, silly, they just fly, but it takes them a really long time because they're small." "That makes sense." He snapped a photo of the butterfly. "We should look up their migration patterns. Would you like that?" "Yes." Mia threw her good arm around his neck. "You're the best daddy ever." I watched his eyes close, watched him hold her carefully, and felt something crack in my chest. When Mia ran off to chase another butterfly, guards tracking her movement discreetly from the perimeter, Marco stood and noticed me watching. "Most of what she told me was wrong," he said quietly. "I checked. Monarchs don't fly to Mexico from here. Wrong migration path." "I know." But she sounded so confident. A smile tugged at his mouth. "She has your ability to make anything sound true. She has your stubbornness. God help us both." He brushed dirt from his pants. "Sophia, I need to ask you something. Tonight, after Mia's asleep." Something in his tone made my pulse quicken. "What about?" "Us. Our arrangement. What happens next?" He stepped closer, and I caught the scent of his cologne mixed with garden soil and children's shampoo. "I need to know what you want. Really want. Not what fear or circumstances force you to accept. Marco, just dinner. Maria will watch Mia. We'll talk. Honestly." His hand almost touched my face, then dropped. "Please." I should have said no. Should have maintained distance, kept walls up, remembered all the reasons I'd run. Instead, I heard myself say, "Okay." That evening, Maria set up a small table on the terrace overlooking the gardens. Candles, wine, the sunset painting the sky in shades of gold and amber. Marco waited for me in a dark shirt, no tie, looking less like a crime lord and more like the man I'd fallen for 6 years ago. "Thank you for agreeing to this," he said as I sat down. "You said we needed to talk." "We do." He poured wine with steady hands. "We need to discuss our future, all 3 of us, and I need to tell you what I've decided." Before he could continue, alarms shattered the peaceful evening. Loud, urgent. Security breach. Marco was already moving, his hand going to the gun I knew he kept holstered beneath his jacket. "Stay here. Mia. Maria has her in the safe room. Protocol." He spoke rapidly into his phone in Italian, his entire demeanor shifting. 2 men at the east perimeter. Camera 3 picked up movement. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. The attack Agent Chen warned about. The reason the walls existed. The guards. The cameras. The reason I'd been right to run 5 years ago. 10 minutes stretched like hours. I stood frozen on the terrace, watching Marco's security team mobilize through the gardens like shadows, hearing shouted commands, seeing flashlight beams cutting through the twilight. Then Marco returned, holstering his weapon. "False alarm?" I asked hopefully. "Paparazzi. 2 freelance photographers trying to get pictures of DeLuca's secret family." His jaw was tight. "They've been removed from the property and their equipment confiscated. My lawyers are handling it." Paparazzi. I sank into my chair, adrenaline making my hands shake. That's what triggered a full security response? Any breach is treated as hostile until proven otherwise. He sat across from me, but the romantic atmosphere was shattered. The wine glasses sat untouched. The candles flickered uselessly. I laughed, sharp, bitter. This is exactly what I was afraid of. This life, this constant threat assessment, I know. He cut me off, his voice quiet. I know, Sophia. You think I don't see it? That I don't understand why you ran? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Every day I watch you look at the walls, the cameras, the guards. I see you calculating escape routes even now. Then why are we having this conversation? What's the point of dinner and wine and pretending? Because I'm giving you a choice. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Real choice this time. No ultimatums, no threats. He laid out 3 documents on the table. Option 1, legal marriage. My name, my resources, my full protection. Mia becomes my legitimate heir. You become my wife again, with full partnership this time. Decisions made together, boundaries respected. My throat tightened. Option 2, co-parenting arrangement. I set you up in a separate property, secured, protected, but yours. Shared custody. Mia goes between homes. You have independence while she has both parents. And option 3? His hand trembled slightly as he laid down the final document. I disappear. You and Mia get new identities, unlimited funds, protection from a distance by people who'll never identify themselves. You get the normal life you wanted. His voice cracked. And I give up being her father. I stared at the papers, then at him. You'd really do that? Walk away from her? If it keeps you both truly safe? If it gives her a chance at normal? His eyes were bright with unshed tears. I told you before, I've missed every moment up until now, but I'd rather miss the rest of her life than make her a target, because I was too selfish to let go. Marco, I'm not the man you left anymore. He stood, began pacing. I've been restructuring, delegating the dangerous operations, pulling back from active control. Look. He pulled out his tablet, showed me documents. I'm transitioning to legitimate businesses. It'll take years, but I'm doing it. For her. For you. You're stepping away from your empire. I'm choosing my daughter over everything else. He met my eyes. Over territory. Over power. Over the life I built. She's 4 years old and she asked me to check for monsters under her bed. And I realized, I'm the monster I need to protect her from. My world, my choices, my enemies. The vulnerability in his voice was devastating. Agent Chen was right. You're both in more danger because of me. But leaving you unprotected... He shook his head. The thought of you out there, alone, struggling, I can't breathe thinking about it. So I'm giving you the choice I should have given you 5 years ago. I looked at the 3 documents. 3 futures, laid out like cards in a terrible game. What do you want? I asked quietly. I want option 1. I want us to be a family. I want to wake up every morning knowing you're both safe under my roof. I want to teach Mia to ride a bike and read her terrible bedtime stories and be there for every moment. His voice roughened. I want you, Sophia, not as a possession, as a partner, as my wife, as the woman I never stopped loving, even when I was too much of a fool to show it properly. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear my own thoughts. But what I want doesn't matter if you're just staying out of fear, he continued. If you choose me, I need it to be real, not coerced, not forced, real. I opened my mouth to answer. Mia's voice called from inside the house. Mama? Daddy? Maria said the alarm was just a mistake. Can I have ice cream now? We both turned to see her standing in the doorway, Maria hovering protectively behind her, our daughter completely unafraid in her princess pajamas. And I realized she felt safe here. More than that. She was happy. I woke to the sound of breaking glass. Not alarms this time, just the sharp, crystalline crash of windows shattering, followed by shouting in Italian, and the unmistakable crack of gunfire. My body moved on instinct. I ran to Mia's room, scooped her from bed. She was already awake, eyes wide with fear, and pressed us both against the wall. "Mama?" "Shh, baby, it's okay." But it wasn't okay. The compound's security lights blazed to life, turning night into artificial day. More gunshots. Closer now. Marco's voice cut through the chaos, calm and commanding even at a shout. "Elena, panic room, now!" The door burst open. Elena grabbed my arm, pulling us toward the hallway. "This way, quickly." The panic room was behind a false wall in Marco's study, reinforced steel, biometric locks, monitors showing every angle of the property. Elena pushed us inside just as more gunfire erupted from the east wing. "Stay here. Don't open for anyone but Mr. DeLuca." She slammed the door shut. The lock engaged with a heavy thunk. Mia was crying now, soft, scared whimpers against my shoulder. "What's happening?" "Just some bad people trying to get in. But Daddy won't let them." I pulled up the security monitors, my hands shaking. "See? Daddy's keeping us safe." On screen, I watched Marco become someone I'd almost forgotten existed. He moved through the gardens with lethal precision, his weapon an extension of his body. His men flanked him in coordinated formation. This wasn't chaos, it was choreography. Years of training and experience reduced to fluid violence. 3 men breached the east gate. Marco's team neutralized them in seconds. 2 more came over the north wall. They didn't make it 10 feet. I watched him shoot a man who got too close to the house. Watched him barely flinch as return fire shattered a window behind him. Watched him issue orders in that cold, controlled voice, while systematically eliminating every threat. This was the man I'd run from. The dangerous one. The killer. But he was also protecting his family with the same absolute certainty he'd once used to build an empire. 7 minutes. That's how long the attack lasted. When the locks disengaged, Marco stood in the doorway. Blood on his shirt. Not his, I prayed. Gun still in hand. Eyes scanning us for injury with desperate intensity. "Are you hurt, either of you?" "We're fine." My voice sounded distant. "Mia, it's okay. It's over." But Mia wasn't afraid. She wriggled free from my arms and ran to Marco, wrapping herself around his legs despite the blood, despite the gun, despite everything. "Did you stop the monsters, Daddy?" Marco holstered his weapon and lifted her carefully, one arm supporting her weight while his other hand cradled her head. His dangerous hands, so gentle with our daughter. "Yes, baby girl, the monsters are gone." "All of them?" His eyes met mine over her head, and I saw the truth there before he spoke it. "All of them tonight." Later, after Mia finally fell asleep between us in Marco's bed, neither of us willing to let her out of sight, Marco showed me the surveillance footage from the attack. Coordinated, professional. He pointed to the screen. 6 men, military training. They knew our security patterns, our blind spots. Who sent them? He pulled up another image. A man caught on camera during reconnaissance last week. Slavic features. Cold eyes. Mikhail Volkov's lieutenant. The Russian wants Mia. My blood turned to ice. Why? Leverage, or revenge. 5 years ago, I disrupted his trafficking operation, saved 73 women. Marco's jaw clenched. He's been waiting for a weakness. Now he's found one. What do? I end this. Marco stood, his expression shifting to something calculating and cold. Tomorrow, I call a meeting of the 5 families. There's precedent for protected status. Family members who are untouchable by treaty. I'm invoking it. And if they refuse? He looked at me, and I saw the man who'd built an empire on fear and loyalty. Then I remind them why refusing me is a mistake they'll never make twice. Marco walked into the meeting of the 5 families alone. No guards, no weapons visible. Just a man in a dark suit carrying a leather folder and absolute certainty. I watched from the car outside the Neutral Ground restaurant. Security monitors showing the private room where 5 of the most dangerous men in the city sat around a table. Enemies forced into uneasy alliance by mutual profit. "What's he doing?" I asked Marco's second-in-command, a man named Vincent who'd been guarding us since the attack. "Ending this, one way or another." On screen, Marco laid photographs on the table. Crime scene images from the attack, ballistics reports, security footage showing the Russians' men breaching his home. Then he spoke. Even without audio, I could see the impact of his words on the other men. See their expressions shift from hostile to wary to calculating. Marco pulled out a document. The treaty provision, ancient underworld law that protected family members from retaliation, made them untouchable. One of the men, Castellano, I recognized him from news reports, shook his head. Refusal. Marco's response was immediate. He pulled out his phone, made a single call, and within seconds, Castellano's own phone lit up. Whatever Marco showed him made the man go pale. Leverage. Marco had brought leverage. He went around the table, addressing each man individually, showing them what he'd learned about their operations, their weaknesses, their families. Not threats, promises. Touch my daughter, and I'll dismantle everything you've built. Finally, the oldest man at the table, Don Vittorio, head of the commission, nodded once. The others followed. Treaty signed. Mia was untouchable. 6 months later, I stood in the garden watching Marco teach Mia to ride a bicycle. The compound had changed. There was a playground now where armed guards used to patrol. A small gate to the neighbor's property. Carefully vetted, of course, but neighbors nonetheless. Other children's laughter carried over the wall during weekend barbecues. Not normal, but closer than I'd ever imagined possible. "I got it, Daddy!" Mia shouted as Marco's hands released the bike seat. "I'm doing it!" "You are!" Marco jogged beside her, ready to catch her if she wobbled. "You're amazing, Piccolina!" She made it 20 feet before the bike tipped. Marco caught her before she hit the ground, both of them laughing breathlessly. My heart swelled watching them together. Marco caught my eye and mouthed 3 words. "I love you." I hadn't said it back yet, not in 6 months of living here, of watching him transform, of slowly, carefully letting my walls crumble. But I felt it. Every day, in 1,000 small moments. That night, we tucked Mia in together, our nightly ritual now. "Mama? Daddy?" Mia's voice was sleepy, her eyelids already heavy. "You're not going away, right? Either of you?" "Never," I said firmly. Marco knelt beside her bed, taking her small hand in his scarred one. His eyes were bright with emotion. This man who'd once terrified me, now undone by a 4-year-old's bedtime question. "Mia, do you remember when I first met you? In the hospital?" She nodded, clutching her white tiger. "I made you a promise then. Do you remember what I said? That you missed every moment before." "That's right." His voice roughened. "I've missed every moment up until that day. Your first words, your first steps, your first birthday. All of it, and I can never get those moments back." He leaned forward, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "But never again, baby girl. Never again. From now until forever, I'll be here. For every bedtime story, every scraped knee, every bad dream. For every moment of your life, I promise you, never again. Promise, 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 promise." After she fell asleep, Marco and I stood in the hallway. He pulled a small box from his pocket, the ring he'd offered 6 months ago, when he'd given me 3 choices. "I know you haven't answered yet," he said quietly. "And I won't push, but I need you to know." "Yes." He froze. "What?" "Yes, Marco. I choose option 1. I choose us. I choose this family. I touched his face, feeling him lean into my palm. I choose you, not because I'm afraid, not because I'm trapped, but because I want this. I want you. I want the life we're building together. He pulled me into his arms, holding me like I was precious, breakable, everything. I love you, he whispered against my hair. Never stopped. Never will. I know. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I love you too. The ring slid onto my finger perfectly, just like it had 6 months ago when he'd first shown it to me. This time I wore it by choice,